Journey's End is the newest adaptation of the R.C. Sherriff play and book of the same name, starring Sam Claflin, Asa Butterfield, Paul Bettany and Toby Jones. The movie follows a small regiment of soldiers in World War I who have to hold the frontline trenches for 6 days until they are given further orders. And what we mostly see is how they interact with each other and how they deal with this situation in the trenches. Now, one thing I'm going to say straight off the bat is if you go into this movie expecting a really intense and bloody and violent war movie like Saving Private Ryan or Hacksaw Ridge or Dunkirk, you won't get that here. What you instead get is a very slow burner of a war movie that actually plays out more like a drama than anything else, and in my opinion it works incredibly well because of this. You don't really need the over-the-top violence and the explosions and the gunfire to really encapsulate what happens in this movie, because in this movie is driven solely through its characters and it works incredibly well because of it. The best way I can describe this movie is simple but very bloody effective. Like I said, it's a drama that focuses around the characters more than anything else, and you spend the majority of the movie with the sergeants and commanders in charge of this regiment, and you can see that they are more human than any of the other soldiers in that trench. They have problems. They are not perfect people, and you can tell that because they've been doing this for so long that they are actually broken both mentally and at times physically as well. For example, Sam Claflin's character, who you could say is the main character of the movie, the first time you meet him, it's very obvious that he has a drinking problem because of like the shit that he's seen and the stuff that he's been through. And usually stuff like a drinking problem can be done in a very cliched way, but here it's done in a very natural and realistic way, and that's probably the best aspect I can say to pretty much all of the acting and pretty much everything in regards to this movie. It feels natural, it feels realistic, nothing feels over dramatized or anything like that. It just feels genuine, and that's what makes this movie so good and what makes all of the dramatic moments really pack that extra punch. All of the performances in this movie are absolutely amazing. There is not a single bad performance in the entire movie, and it really just makes the movie that whole much more believable. Asa Butterfield, I would say, was the only person who I thought at first was a bit iffy, but as the movie goes on, you really do feel for his character, especially seeing that he's only just started being a soldier, and his first, orders are to go literally in at the deep end, so you really do feel for him, especially by the end of the movie. However, my two favourite performances in the entire film are that of Sam Claflin and Paul Bettany. Like I said about Sam Claflin's character earlier, he has a drinking problem and it's never played for cliches or over dramatised. Every time he has an outburst or every time he does something, it feels very realistic, and you can completely understand where he's coming from, even if at times he can be rather unreasonable to other characters. Paul Bettany, on the other hand, gives one of the best performances I've ever fucking seen from him. He is amazing in this movie. He gives a masterclass performance. He feels like this character that you could easily say is one of your best friends, and you're meeting them for the first time in a long time. He just feels like this normal guy that happens to be in this incredibly shitty situation, and that goes for most of the characters, but it mostly specifies with his character specifically. The movie itself looks and feels very bleak, and the colour palette is very dreary in places, but it really works for the sake of the movie, and I don't think you could have it any other way. If this was a very bright and colourful movie, it just wouldn't work, so the fact that it's very dirty, gritty, and at times quite depressing really fits the style and tone of this movie really well. Also, apparently a lot of the scenes in this movie, especially the ones that take place in the underground quarters that the commander and sergeant live, apparently were all lit naturally. There's no artificial lighting. It's mostly lit with the small little candles that the characters have. And it really shows. Nothing feels, you know, Hollywoodized or anything like that. It all feels very in the moment. And the fact that the entire film, for the most part, is set within the trenches and the camera itself is in the trenches with these soldiers makes you yourself feel like you're there with the soldiers, thus making you empathise with them that way, on top of the fact that these are genuinely really nice characters and really well-rounded, realistic characters that you're with. The only problem I have with this movie is in regards to one specific scene where a couple of the characters have to go over the top onto no man's land. Now, for the most part, the camera movement is fairly smooth and, you know, moves with the characters. But this one scene where they have to go over the top is incredibly shaky to the point where I had no idea what was going on, and kind of put me out of the moment ever so slightly. Apart from that, the rest of the movie is shot and acted as best as a movie could possibly be. And all of these elements combined to make an experience that I thought was truly emotional and incredibly intense, and I loved every single minute of it, which is why, despite that one scene that did feel a little bit out of place in regards to the camera work, I'm still going to give Journey's End a 9 out of 10. It's really, really, really well acted, it's very well shot, and it's just an incredibly well executed movie. Though it doesn't try anything outstanding, it just does what it does in the best possible way. So guys, that was my review of Journey's End. If you enjoyed the video, then give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye.